Thank you for staying with us. So during the week, President Muhammadu Buhari gave directives on the commencement of a nationwide mass metering and the end to estimated billing. This is great news for many Nigerians who have had to pay for estimated bills and epileptic power supply over the years. Now, some of them will tell you that, imagine a one-bedroom apartment, I pay as much as 10,000 naira for lights that many times I don't see. Well, hopefully that will come to an end after this directive. But today we'll take a look at how effective this directive will be. Will it work out? Are there any clogs in the wheel? Hopefully not, but we will see how that would work out. So to help us look at this matter, we have Muhyiddin Ibrahim, Executive Secretary, Electricity Meter Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Also here is Duro Shola Omegbenigun, who's the CEO of Integrated Resources Limited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
In the course of the segment, we will be talking to Yemi Oke, who's an Associate Professor of Energy and Electricity Law. He'll be joining us in the course of the conversation. So let me start with Muhyiddin.
Yeah.
So how were you happy when you heard that directive?
Yeah, it was really a sharing news. I was really happy, and all the members of the association, they were equally very happy and delighted. And we just hope the implementation will be very right.
Were you delighted because it's helping more for you guys?
Absolutely. Aside from bringing more money, it's going to be a win-win situation.
How?
If you ask me, beautiful. One, it's going to make the meter manufacturers to go back to business and produce for Nigerians. It's going to make an average Nigerian to have meters in their various homes. So then it's also going to make the discos to be also very busy. Then aside from that, it's going to produce jobs for the teeming unemployed if we get it right. So that's why I said it's going to be a win-win situation. So what we need to do is just to think outside the box and get it right. Okay. And I bet you Nigeria will be better for it.
Okay. Well, we'll still come to that. What do you think?
It's a very welcome development. There's been the interest to get mass metering right over the years. But there's a need, a very strong need at this point in time to make sure that all the stakeholders that are involved in getting actual mass metering to happen are made to work together, and they harmonize all the policies in government to make sure that it's not a little too late at every stage, because that has been a big issue in the past.
You know, I was going to ask you, why didn't we get it right before now? And what's going to change? But hold on, we've been joined by Professor Yemi Oke, Associate Professor of Energy and Electricity Law, who joined us from Abeokuta via Skype. Prof, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while. So this new directive by the president to end everything estimated billing and ensure that every Nigerian is metered, how do you take that news?
Well, thank you very much for that important question. One, it's not the president of Nigeria that will end estimated billing in the power sector. That's one. Two, the existing structure in place, talking about regulatory instruments and the recent MAP, Meter Access Provider Scheme, are meant to gradually phase out estimated billing. Inherent in the policy is the fact that those who are not already metered will be able to pay, that their bills are capped, sort of, to continue to pay a particular fixed amount of money until they are metered. By the time federal government is now making policy declaration, the way it's been reported in the media, the federal government will stop estimated billing. That's not going to happen. We've had series of similar pronouncement by the federal government. That's not the way to go about it. The way to go about it is to empower existing meter manufacturers by giving them good incentives to be able to manufacture meters for Nigerians. Two, to encourage Nigerians to pay for electricity consumed. We still have a lot of problems in instances where meters are also installed. I'll be honest with you, a lot of Nigerians are still bypassing. Now, that's for a fact, and that's not good for the industry. So the discos and other operators are also growing under heavy burdens of course, liquidity, as it were. But I can tell you that the decision or the policy statement of the federal government to stop estimated billing is not going to happen. It's not realistic unless and until government takes deliberate steps to empower existing infrastructure, meaning the discos are already under a statutory mandate to do a number of things, but there isn't an enabling environment for them to be able to do that. For instance, meter asset provider scheme, they moved from CAPME. CAPME is a kind of scheme, a credit scheme that enables consumers to advance money for the purposes of meter. And over time, that gets deducted from their bills. That has been phased out now. We now have MAP. MAP is even not as effective because they are meant to install meters over a number of days, perhaps 1 month. But we still have long queues. A lot of Nigerians who have signified their intention to have meters installed. They've still not been installed. Two, the consumers are still being made to pay for those meters, contrary to expectations. And
Mr.
government making...
Mr. Okay, just hold your thoughts there. Let me come back to these other players in here who are actually very hands-on when it comes to the meter thing. So let me find out from them. The question of, he talks about incentives. He says, contrary to what you said, that this is a good thing. He doesn't think it will work because the infrastructure that was there before this directive came is still there. It's not changed. So why do you think it will change?
Well, don't forget that there are various stakeholders in the sector. We have the meter manufacturers. They are ready. We are super ready even before this pronouncement came. So I think at a time like this, we should just be optimistic that it can work. And that's why I said it depends on the implementation. If the implementation is right, why not if not? It will definitely work. Laws are made for human beings, and the policies are to be also implemented by human beings. It is because of policies of my sort that has not really worked in the past. You know, it is the human beings, the human factor, the human element. So if that is taken off, definitely it will work. Because a lot of people are suffering. You understand? And so once the meters are there and they are provided for people, definitely it will work.
Once the meters are there and they are provided for people, so people will still pay for the meters?
They will pay for the meters, and that is the value they will get at the end of the day.
Okay, so what happens to all the schemes? You had the CAPME, you had the MAP. So
that is why I said it is implementation that did not make it work. So supposing, and that falls on the tables of the regulatory body, for God's sake, and for crying out loud. So if the regulatory body do what it's supposed to do as at when due, it will work. Why is it that...
The question then is, if you say the people will still pay, contrary to what Prof is saying about making people pay for these meters, the meter still belongs to the discos, right?
Yes.
The meters belong to the discos.
Yes.
So if I pay for a meter which belongs to the disco, why should it belong to a disco? Why shouldn't it belong?
Because the challenge is that the discos are saying that there is no money to procure all these meters, and that was why MAP came in the first instance. But there was funding challenge.
But even as it came, people are still paying for it.
People are
and
still,
many of them haven't gotten their meters.
Because there was no fund to finance it. The financing was a challenge. And so people paid. And over a number of years or time, they will be deducting it from their token. That was the agreement. And it was working in some area. But along the line, it crashed too.
Okay. Drushola, this thing, first, Professor Oke says it will not work. He says it will work. It's implementation. the question of the meter, the incentives here for the manufacturers and even the people who use, and the discos, do you see them in line?
Do I see them?
Do you see incentives to make this work? I mean, for years we've been battling this back and forth. Meter, don't meter, estimated billing, no estimated billing. He has said the federal government cannot end estimated billing if the infrastructure on ground doesn't change.
Both parties have some points, but I share a cautious optimism that it can work. And I believe it will work if all those policies that have been put in place are well implemented, and more importantly, if the stakeholders come together and harmonize their policies, the macroeconomic conditions are made to work with the policies, and incentives are created in such a way that those macroeconomic conditions provide the necessary platforms for the policies to work. In particular, exchange rate.
Okay.
It moves, capped meter prices versus exchange rate.
Okay.
How does that work?
Okay, we'll take it up from
Yes,
there. Capped
yeah.
meter prices versus exchange rate. We'll look at that when we come back from this break. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And we have this comment here from Osho Sam. He says, we've been battling this years with metering because of the corruption in the power sector. There was a time when prepaid meters were given to households before payment. What stops us from first having meters free while we are debited from our tokens, which is what you referred to earlier.
Totally.
But you were saying, before we went to that break, you were talking about the macroeconomic situation. Example, exchange rate, and then a capped electricity pricing. You think it will not work?
It won't. That does not work, really.
So where does that, what you've said now, how does that relate to what he said earlier about the laws are meant for the people, not the people for the laws? Laws and policies are meant for the people, not the people for the law.
Yeah, laws and policies are meant for the people, but those policies have to rest on realistic macroeconomic conditions. So capped meter prices, fluctuating exchange rates, even add on to that, custom duty variations after contracts have been signed and prices have been determined. Now, all of that, what it does is that you get the margins decline, diminish, and if there are no margins, how do you attract long-term financing to come into the sector? And part of the long-term financing finances immediate cash procurement of meters, as well as installmental payment of meters, which I believe is what the caller has referred to. Now, installmental payments require also a certain kind of interest component on it. Now, NEC has done something in the interest of the consumers, which is fair enough, a fixed, also a capped interest rate. Now, if there is a capped interest rate, then it is essential that whoever is going to lease out meters under that capped interest rate must be getting his rates lower than that rate for it to work. The capped rate is 21%. We all know what the commercial rate is in Nigeria, okay? So we would say, okay, well, let's not take the money from Nigeria, let's bring in the money from overseas, foreign investment. Now, how's foreign investment going to come in when the exchange rate is not determined? The exchange rate moves, they are not sure that they will be able to export their capital. When the capital comes in, exchange rate moves, the meter price is capped. How is he going to get back his money at the end of the day when the meter price, funds comes in? So these are issues that affect the ability of consumers to get the meters. Part of what happened in Capney was there was a fixed price, exchange rates moved, it was not possible to sell at that price again, Capney had to crash. Then you had to go renegotiate with the discos. If you want the meters, this is how much we can do it. Are you ready to buy it? Yeah, the discos did some transactions. They went ahead, but they have limited financial capacity as well. Therefore, they were limited.
This picture you paint is like the picture that the nation's trying to move away from, where residents of an area buy the meter or buy the transformer that's used to connect power to their homes, and then they are still charged electricity bill. There's no incentive for the people to own this infrastructure. So at the end of the day, you're telling people to pay you like 2-3 times for what they are not seeing. Professor Oke, this whole thing of imbalance here and there, incentives, unstable macroeconomic situation, and then the weight of it appears to be resting on the citizenry. How do we leave that place? We'll come back to Professor Yemi Oke, who is in Abeokuta. We'll come back to you there. But let's come back here. This whole thing, you put in resources, you invest your money, and then you get to tend to import some of the things you use for your manufacturing.
Components, basically.
You import some of those components. Is there no other alternative? Because I'm sure you're also looking at the weight of input plus output.
Yeah, absolutely there are other alternatives. But the unfortunate thing is that the system or where we find ourselves is not conducive for production, as it were. But if you ask me, this is really the time for the government to really look critically into the metering gap and industrialize the sector. Because as we speak, we have over 6 million metering gap in the country, meaning we have more than 6 million people that really needs meter. Unfortunately, they have not been metered. So this is the time to come around the table and think critically outside the box.
When you say government should look at it and industrialize, I thought you said the manufacturers are ready to go.
The manufacturers are there, but let me use a case study. Hitherto before the liberalization of the telecom sector, we were in a cul-de-sac, as it were. But when it was liberalized, we had a lot of jobs. And today, everybody is on his own, and things are moving. It's the same thing the government should look critically into that sector too. And once the government gets it right, it will create so many opportunities for the Nigerians and even for foreigners. And we can even now start exporting meters. So now, the manufacturers in Nigeria, there are quite a number of them, they are ready. In fact, they have been producing meters for the nation. But the challenge is that the implementation of these meters, so there is a gap. The discourse will be saying they don't have money. So how do you juxtapose that based on what these people are producing? And they need to get their money and get everything right. So that's why I said the government also needs to come into it, liberalize it. At a time like this, we need to be looking for solution, permanent solution.
You talked about when the telecom industry was deregulated, so that everybody could run. Yeah. There was a structure, and then. So what if, even as Tunde Ario is saying, it says the problem is Nigerians are ready to pay for meters, but he says government only needs to allow them own what they pay. I mean, would you want to pay for something and not own it?
Well, that's why I said the government really needs to come into that sector and do sort of an holistic approach and prefer solution to it. Because now, the meters are there, the discos will be claiming ownership even when you pay and what they're supposed to provide for you. So in a situation like that, we need to get it right, get a good policy, get everything right. Then all the stakeholders and the players can play very well, and everybody will smile. That is what I mean by a win-win situation. But in a situation now that the discourse, I'm sorry to say, perhaps they are happy that the meters are not there. They give you estimated bills at the end of the month, and you'll be forced to pay. If you don't pay, they come, they disconnect you.
So we're back to what Professor Oke was saying, that this policy will not work because the infrastructure has not changed.
Why I said it can work is that if it is well implemented and regulated, policies work in other climes. Why is it that this can't work in Nigeria? And perhaps because I'm from the private sector, I'm always very optimistic. And now that the government has made a pronouncement that end this thing, why can't they end it? So if they don't end it, meaning they are benefiting from it, and which is an open secret that they know that they are actually benefiting from it, because you're actually paying for what you didn't use,
okay,
which is not good.
It's okay. I understand we have you back now. So that question I asked you earlier, Is there a way we can come out of this so that it's not a question of the people are for the laws, not the laws for the people?
Thank you very much. This issue is not whether law made for people or people made for law. The actual point which Nigerians should know is that we've been having extreme policy somersault. I've been having something that will amount to political manifestos being read by way of policy, that those are not practically implementable. For instance, Nigerians ought not actually, they ought not to pay for meters. Meters are like, they're just devices to connect customers. If you are interested in selling electricity to me, you install meters and then you can connect me to your installation so that I can pay for services rendered to me. But the way things are manifested in Nigeria, it's difficult for government to fund metering. Government has not been forthcoming in providing necessary incentive for meter manufacturers. The third point is the discos are also playing games with issues of metering. I've said that severally, even in your studios there. I want to assume it might not be in the interest of discos for people to be metered. Otherwise, they should be in the forefront of making meters available to customers and consumers alike so that they can be appropriately billed. But we have some fundamental challenges as a country. We don't even know how many homes we have in Nigeria. We don't even know how many homes are currently metered. We don't even know how many homes are not metered. We don't even have statistics as to how many homes are bypassing meters, how many homes are connected to a particular grid. We have overlapping grids, like some segment of Ogun, they still pay to Ikeja Disco as against Ibadan Disco. We still have a number of things that we need to sort out. We have reputable meter manufacturers in Nigeria, and I've visited a number of their factories. They have meters in abundance. Guess what? Discos are not fully sufficiently patronizing these manufacturers. They insist on so-called smart meters, as if Nigerian manufacturers are so incapable of manufacturing smart meters. Smart meters takes XYZ to produce. Where are the Nigerian banks giving them financial backings to do that? Where are the sovereign guarantees for them to be able to borrow, to access funding from overseas to produce or manufacture smart meters for Nigerians? I've mentioned politics of metering several times, and that is what is playing out. The policy, the declaration of the federal government is at best a manifesto to me. That's where I see it. Apologies, because they are not going to back that up with financial or logistical incentives to enable meter manufacturers to produce or manufacture meters for Nigeria, be it smart or not so smart meters. There are homes in Nigeria, all they need is meters.
Prof, that declaration by the president also included what's called an import levy waiver on these meters and whatever that will be imported to help make metering a lot easier. Well, isn't that something good to say, okay, that's like an added advantage?
Thank you. The way to go is government should have no business in the business of metering. This is a sector that is privatized. But we seem to be spending even much more in the sufficiently privatized power sector than we were doing even when it was under the old PACN and NEPA. Why? Government is funding GENCOs, government is giving incentives to DISCOs, government is funding TCN, government is even now over-subsidizing the power sector, despite over-subsidizing the petroleum sector. no country can thrive, even not even pre or post COVID era. It's not realistic. I'm being realistic here. All government needs to do is to encourage those who are in the business of importing or manufacturing meters. Let the incentive be channeled to them directly. MAP will source meters from them and install. Then discos should bring available data, present it, so that we know how many homes are not metered, how many homes are metered. They will now determine the suitability of a particular brand of meter to be installed in those homes. But government doesn't even have what it takes now, because we have Siemens. Siemens is on ground. There are a lot of issues around that. Then we have Asura now that I read in the dailies today that federal government is trying to restructure the obligations under the Asura project. Government is spending so much in the power sector and we're not getting value for it. So I will assume the meter manufacturers will now be key players to implement this policy, assuming that the government is now really seriously sincere. They should summon a meeting of the meter manufacturers and other stakeholders and let whatever incentive go directly to them. Whatever guarantees they have should go to reputable meter manufacturers. The association is there.
Okay, all right. The question then is, has your association been called in for a meeting as regards incentives, as regards how you're going to take this forward? Because he said something else. He talked about the fact that the discos don't patronize you. Plus, the incentives that government's talking about now are not coming directly to the manufacturers. Maybe there are middlemen in between and all of that. So has your association been called into a meeting?
Well, at the moment, the association has not been formally called for a meeting with respect to the incentives. But I can tell you authoritatively that most of our members are being patronized, especially those ones that are manufacturing, because there are classes of members. Those ones who are manufacturing smart meters that you can use remotely from anywhere and recharge. Then what Professor was saying can be overcome with technology. And some of the manufacturers, they have the technology to dictate when a meter is bypassed from any parts.
But is it running? Is the technology
it's
being
working, but
implemented?
the technology is there. Even because the manufacturers, some of them have gone far and they can provide solutions to metering challenges in Nigeria. The unfortunate thing is that some of the discos won't cooperate with them because they are independent and there are many. You understand?
Okay.
So
we'll come back
some of the issues Prof raised can actually be solved through technology. And we have them here in Nigeria. But we don't
come back to look at
ourselves.
technology.
That's the challenge we have.
When we come back from this, we'll look at technology and data as a means to solving this. Because one of our viewers, Igmosa, says, piecemeal approach to the power sector will only achieve fragments. We need to look at the sector as a whole. So look at that when we come back from this break. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at this matter of the new policy of government to say that, and by the president, read out by the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, that President Muhammadu Buhari directed the commencement of nationwide mass metering as part of efforts to end arbitrary and estimated billing. Again, some people will be rejoicing. I know someone who will be very glad. Oh, finally, I stay in a one-bedroom apartment and I spend like 10,000 naira for a month, for one light, one TV, one fridge. How? Well, hopefully that will end. But how will that end? So the question of data, Professor Oke talked about how many houses are metered, how many need metering. And then the other side of it is, do we have the data? Is the system working together even?
Good. So data and whether the system is working together. On the issue of data, quite a few discos have what is called the AMI that allows smart meters to work. I don't know the last time Prof looked at the system, but they do have that. As far as how many homes have meters and so on, NEC has guidelines and an order in place directing enumeration. Enumeration is an ongoing process. Maybe you stop it in various windows and take a snapshot.
So as we speak now, we don't have the data.
We do. Enumeration is going on.
Okay.
And the last snapshot was in sometime in early 2019, or maybe about mid-2019, that gave the figure for about 6.5 million deficit on meters. But don't forget that perhaps you've just acquired or built 2 or 3 houses. You need meters for them. So it's an evolving system. Home population, the population of houses will continue to increase. So enumeration will happen periodically to determine how many homes will need metering. And this is what keeps the industry going on and sustainable and growing as well. So that happens constantly. Now, who are the people in the system? Let's say in the metering, in the electricity sector, there is an ecosystem. Now you have the MAPs, who are the guys who actually bring in the meters, and they also buy from the manufacturers in Nigeria and install in the homes. So you have the manufacturers right there. But then you also have the guys who are responsible for making sure that metering will work. We have various agencies and ministries involved. You have Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance controls customs duties. Okay? You have the central bank.
And there's a waiver on levies.
There is a waiver on levies. That is the good job that the Minister of Finance
But would it be implemented?
That is a problem.
Okay.
It's been in the air for like some 2-3 weeks, but we have not seen any white paper. We don't know how it's going to be done. I have had various things because I move in the system. I try to find out. But my encouragement to government is that they should consider all the stakeholders. They should make sure MAPs are involved. They should make sure manufacturers are involved as well, so that meters can be cleared quickly, and that also, when is it going to start? Because if it has started and we're still not in the know, that means valuable time is going on, and Mr. President has said 1 year. Therefore, time is essential. Now, you also have NEC. NEC is the supervising body for NESI, as it were. So they supervise the MAPs, they supervise the manufacturers as well. Now, and NEC tries to bring together everybody. Okay? Now, I will say that right now, to hopefully forestall another policy somersault on MAPs, government has done something that is unprecedented, first time, in which case there seems to be, it's yet to be formalized and to be announced to us, but there seems to be a team consisting of CBN, Customs, Finance, NEC, and 1 or 2 other agencies, Federal Ministry of Industries, that wants to make sure that factories are, manufacturers are patronized, MAPs are able to sustain by keeping their staff and adding value to NESI. So you have all of those people, and for the first time it looks like government has brought them all together, because I know that this last week they were in Lagos and parts of the country inspecting the available capacity. My plea to government is that just as they've recognized the manufacturers, they need to also call both manufacturers and meter asset providers to the table in these consultations to make sure that this time there will not be a policy somersault.
Okay.
That is the crucial message to success.
Okay, so Lab the Great says Discos want consumers to pay for the meters, and the meters will still be Discos properties. Funny as it is, we don't mind paying for the meters, but Discos should draw down the meter cost from electricity consumed to enable the consumer recover his money. How would that work? Ikmosa says the framing of the master plan is important. We must re-examine the components and their linkages. You talked about all those other players in the ecosystem. Distilling various complementaries and closing all gaps within the ecosystem should provide efficiency and effectiveness. Professor Oke, this whole idea, now, there is that coming together, the fusion. So as we begin to wind down now, way forward.
Thank you. Way forward. The federal government is very sincere and honest now, which I do believe they are. Federal government should summon a course, essentially reputable meter manufacturers or importers as it were. They should engage also meter asset providers and representative of the discos and other stakeholders. Whatever incentive should be channeled through those who are to manufacture or import smart meters or any categories of meters for Nigerians. And once those meters are produced, they should make sure the discos patronize, prove those meters, because over the years, manufactured meters and they were abandoning it. So they should get involved, give that specification, and let the meter manufacturers do their job. The government has no business in meters, but they can facilitate meter production or as it were. So the incentive for engagement should be directly with those who are manufacturing meters and other ancillary stakeholders, if this policy statement will crystallize into fruition.
Okay, let's say this. Henry Domo-Spieth says the truth is that Nigerians don't need to pay for meters. Government should review agreement with discos and gencos, give soft loans to discos to meter everybody, and loans to gencos to generate power up to 50 megawatts. Government should never subsidize. Hinter says metering homes and companies is the disco's responsibility. So
Absolutely.
the end user is actually like renting the meter and should not be asked to pay for it. But Phyllis, before he says, I would love to, he says he wants to see the professor speak ironically and unfortunately. So, but now, do you think this, as in with all the players, you for instance, what would you need as a manufacturer to ensure that meters are consistently put out there so that this policy would work and Nigerians can smile again?
Well, as a key player in the sector, we need policies, workable policies.
This is workable, isn't it?
Workable, yes, workable policies and well implemented policies. Once those things are in place, meters will keep rolling out and it will not stop unabated until the gap is closed. You know, over 6 million plus is a lot in this country, meaning the discos are smiling to the bank, whereas the consumers are crying. Whereas, you know, in my introduction, I said it ought to be a win-win situation. So if it is not a win-win situation, meaning it's not good enough. So what the government needs to do is to create more enabling environment for the meter manufacturers.
I'm sorry, when you say the discos are smiling to the bank, it sounds as if
no,
this
through
whole
the
thing is
estimated.
deliberate.
Well, absolutely.
Deliberate
Why
that
won't
they
it be
should not be
deliberate?
rich.
They should tidy up their network and make this thing work. You have to, if you want to be in business, you'll be in business. You can't be in business and be making the other fellow to cry. Because you have said it severally, that somebody in a one-room bedroom apartment is paying 10,000 naira per month. That is too much. It presupposes that these discos are smiling to the bank with respect to somebody paying just 10 million. What yardstick are they using to measure the energy consumed? And it's supposed to be meter. So once the meter is not there for that person, he'll be paying excess. So, and that should not be the case. So the government should just ensure that this policy works. The moment it works and it's well implemented, and NEC should be up and doing, should be up to its responsibility, is key. And once you err, you are punished. And as we said the other time, you also echo it out, I think the meter manufacturer should be called to a roundtable discussion so that they can actually produce mass meters for Nigeria. They have the capacity to actually roll out meters. It's just to give them the go-ahead to do it. And once it can be taken off by the discos, the meters are there. Smart meters, for that matter, that is technologically driven, that you can actually recharge remotely from any part of where you are within the country. You can recharge.
But Nigerian manufacturers...
Of course, yes, they do that. They do that. I'm telling you authoritatively, they do that. They have the technology in Nigeria. The unfortunate thing in this country that we don't appreciate ourselves. We can actually move from where we are to another level if actually we appreciate ourselves and we also patronize ourselves. Don't forget, if you go outside to buy or procure meters, you are not helping the nation. And that's why I said in my old intro that we need to industrialize this sector, as it were, with this policy. So the implementation must be key. And what the government needs to do now is to call everybody to a roundtable discussion. Let's think outside the box. These meter manufacturers that I'm working with, they are prepared. They have even stock now that even if the discos want to take
So with the
country,
stock they have now, that how much of that deficit will be reduced?
At least with what they have now, it can take care of 25% and
of 6.5
absolutely,
million.
and they can produce more because they have the capacity to actually expand. And I want to urge you and your team to actually visit some of the meter manufacturers.
No, we will still
it's
bring
a
you
challenge.
back. No, we will bring you back.
It's a challenge. Bring me back. It's an
conversation.
ongoing conversation. And they have the capacity to actually expand. I've visited most of them because I work directly with all of them. And they are prepared. And
so the stock in now can take care of 25% of the deficit.
Of course, yes.
So that deficit will reduce almost 3 million.
Absolutely. It will reduce drastically. And they can actually work around the clock again because now they are underutilized.
But then with this lockdown, you said something earlier about components that need to be imported. Couldn't those components be found within the country?
It can be found if the willpower is there. The willpower is not there. That's why the component, because there is no patronage. Once the patronage is there now, they will transfer technology and they'll be producing here. So along the value chain, meaning other people's, that is what I actually said in my intro, that this is an opportunity to actually develop the sector the more and make it more industrialized. So rather than looking outward, we will now be looking inward, and it will actually provide more jobs for the teeming unemployed in Nigeria. And not only that, it also transfer technology into the nation. Then it will also add to the GDP and so many other things. So let's...
A holistic look indeed.
Absolutely. Let's come to a roundtable discussion.
I do know that we have...
Move on.
In almost all of our universities in country, we have departments, faculties of engineering, and if you get there, they do quite a lot of things. I mean, they do remarkable things in some of these schools. If he says we need to look inwards, for some of those components, they can actually be built in here. Again, how do we get to that point where we get everything together and move forward?
Okay. Incidentally, I'm an electrical engineer myself. I had my first few degrees in Nigeria before I went abroad. So, yes.
So you do agree that it can be done in country? I
do agree that it can be done in Nigeria. However, you need a real holistic policy framework to drive product development from the research table to the market. You need a real holistic, and you need a real government willpower to do that. Even though, at the end of the day, you provide that in whatever incentive you do, you're going to give it to the private sector, because the private sector will determine of the research work that is going on, what are the commercially viable products that can be brought to the market.
Because I didn't know, if we want to look at least one university per state, that's like 36 plus one university as a FCT in the country that have faculties of engineering. And each of these ones can look at these things, research development.
Each of them can look at it, but also the research endowment will determine just what kind of products they can bring to the market. But hey, what are we talking about here? Do you want to bring a heating coil to the market? It's made in Nigeria. That's a good thing. Do you want to bring an iron, pressing iron? It's a good thing. You have the product, you have everything you need in Nigeria. It will not be the best product on day one, but it will be workable. So everything is possible. I do know my industrial training in 1981 or 80 was in Philips in Ikorodu here. And I do remember then that we had, wave technology and all of that for putting a PCB together. A PCB
1980.
In 19, yes. But Philips is dead now. And we're saying that how do we make sure that that meter asset provider program and manufacturing how do we make sure the metering industry does not die? That is my own objective. Because if we are not careful, government will come up with incentives. If those incentives are not harmonized, we will not get our own metering industry. And we have the potential in Africa to develop an indigenous metering and electronic industry. That is what government has to look at. Make sure that the central bank makes available the kind of funding that can facilitate industrialization, facilitate, industrialization, especially within the electronic industry, because we are almost there. But we have to make sure that there's a concerted effort to make it happen. So if we now make the funders and the exchange rate managers work with the customs duty to make sure the custom duty levy is implemented at the proper time, and we make sure that the regulator is trying hard and working hard to bring all these things together, because they achieve the meter price increase, the custom duty removal. But if the meter price is increased and exchange rate has overtaken it, like it's going on right now, where we are back to square one. And then, do we want to reverse the policy on maps and manufacturing again? We got a problem. So all of these have to work together for us to get a sustainable metering industry that can attend to the consumers. And may I also remind the market that, the consumers, that actually there is a mechanism for them to recover the cost of their pricing in the tariff. As the tariff is improved again, they may be able to recover faster. So it's not as if they are paying for it and not able to recover. No, there is a mechanism for them to recover their money, because the obligation is that of the disco. But a creative financing model is being introduced by saying, let the customers pay for it first, and then they will be refunded by way of energy credits. That is all that is happening. And we can achieve our own form of industrialization. Please note what South Korea did to get industrialized, what Japan did. It was concerted. They decided they want the electronic industry to move on, heavy shipping, in the heavy industry to move on, and they faced them at different phases of development. And they're where they are today.
And their bilateral conversations with some of these countries could actually get them to come set up here.
Absolutely.
Yes, but many of those setups may have failed. I know a few.
But they can be resuscitated.
They can be, absolutely, with the right incentives in place, they can be resuscitated. If their product price is correct, the FX price they're getting is correct, the funding is correct, the necessary guarantees are in place, and the custom duty is right, and port congestions and all of those things are worked upon, you can get things to happen in Nigeria. Don't forget, all the Nigerians that are overseas that are doing great and mighty things. We still have the brains right here.
All right, thank you very much. Uwemekpo says, others preferred analog or digital meters. Not all meters should be smart. The discos are not interested in metering because they have monopoly. It says the monopoly must be broken. It also says synergy is important in the power sector development. Yusuf says, I paid AEDC, that's Abuja Electric Distribution Company, I paid them 48,300 for meter 3 months ago. No meter. Yet, they are still threatening to disconnect me for not paying bills against NERC directives. Hinter says meters are never allowed to be manipulated or touched by end consumers. The absolute obligation of the discos is to facilitate the price of the kilowatt per hour to end consumers, which reflect on the bill, the cost of rent meter, and all that. Quite a lot of things coming up here. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming in today. Muhyiddin Ibrahim, Executive Secretary, Electricity Meters Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Duro Shola Omobenigun, CEO, Integrated Resources Limited, and Yemi Oke, Associate Professor of Energy and Electricity Law. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing today with us. We will get back to this conversation again, and I'm very sure of that. Hopefully, at that time, some things would have gained some traction. Absolutely. Thank you so much again.
It's my pleasure.
Have a beautiful day. Sunrise will be back in a moment.